Okay. Hello, thank you for joining us. We will get started here in a second.
Hello, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Let me just one moment here. All right, so let's go to. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes, looks
Yep.
great.
Great. Okay, well, I will kick us off. I am Tammy McBride, Career Connected Learning Specialist at the North Central ESD. And I would like to pass it over to Maria. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning. Well, it's not morning anymore. I'm stuck on morning. Good afternoon. Thank you, Christina, and to anybody who might join us later. My name is Maria. I'm with WorkSource Wenatchee Valley, and we serve both Chelan and Douglas counties, and we serve both employers and job seekers and supporting them through their recruitment and employment needs.
Right, and Diane?
Hello, my name is Diane Navarro, and I am a member of the community that has volunteered to help. And why I help is I want to help bridge some of those connections. So I'm here to help WorkSource and North Central ESD with this presentation today. Tina, just a quick question. Are you joining us yourself, or do you have a class joining us as well?
It is just me at the moment. I'm the transition specialist at Eastmont High School, so I just thought I would refresh myself on any new trends with resumes. Right now is a really hard time. From 12 to 3 is really hard at our high school because it's lunches, and then we're done at 2 or 2:30. So I pushed it out to everybody in different classes and students, but it's kind of hard to get them all together at this time.
No problem. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so welcome to the Youth Employment Prep Hour of Rockin' Resumes.
So we will go ahead and get started and we'll jump on in. So what we want to achieve today, our goal today is to give you some information on how to complete a more effective resume. So we'll give you share some quick facts, share some tips and tricks, and then also speak on the different resume styles and the one that we recommend most for students so that they can be more effective on their job search and application process this summer and as they move into employment opportunities. So our very first slide here is we're asking ourselves, what is a resume? So a lot of us have heard about different resume styles, and everyone has a little bit of a different opinion on them. And in a nutshell, a resume is essentially a document capturing a summary of a person's skills and experience. And nowadays, this can look a couple different ways. So it can be hard copy for when we're dropping it off and turning it in person, or it can also be a digital copy for those online applications when we're uploading via online. And another thing to keep in mind is also, aside from the application from when you're applying to the position, the resume is actually your first introduction to that employer that you're applying with. So this is the first time that the employer is being introduced to you as a professional. Next slide. Okay, so now we want to talk a little bit about what is the purpose of a resume. Well, it's to help you get the interview, to land that interview. And this document will outline your specific skills, your professional skills, and it's intended to help you stand out for the right reasons, right? And it helps you show that you are qualified for the position that you're applying to. And it helps you set yourself apart from the crowd, from other candidates, other applicants that are applying, so that you can showcase your specific skill set to that specific position you're trying to obtain. Okay, now we want to dive a little bit deeper. We're going to take this in layers, just like an onion. So we wanted to share some quick facts on resumes that will help you and students when you're working with them to create a more effective resume. So these are some quick and fun facts. So the first one is employers will spend no more than 10 seconds when they're reviewing your resume. And employers review hundreds of resumes. That's why they spend such little time on them. And they also scan the resumes for specific keywords. So they're looking for keywords within their position to match up within the resume. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this later on in the presentation. And another thing to keep in mind is that your resume is not always going to be completely read. So they're not going to review it from start to finish in entirety. That's something to keep in mind. Your resume will also be a working document. So as you gain education, as you gain work experience, your resume is going to evolve into a different document. The content within it is going to be a little bit different, and the style that you ultimately use in the future is going to change also. So that's why we call it a working document. It's going to be changing and evolving. And a targeted resume is always going to increase your opportunities of actually being selected for the interview. This is something that's very important. Targeting is something that we're going to address and cover later on in the presentation. And we're going to address a little bit more detail so that we can help you learn how to target and create a very effective resume. Okay, and no matter which resume you end up creating, something to keep in mind is there's only 3 styles. So there's 3 resume styles. There's the chronological, there's the functional, and the combination. So the chronological organizes your work history, and it starts from most recent to the oldest. And this one is more common, and it's more ideal for those who have a lengthy and a steady work history. It's focused on dates. And then there's the functional. The functional that we have highlighted in blue here is the one that we recommend for youth and students. This one is the one that's ideal for those who have little or less experience, or those who are recent graduates. And this one also focuses on highlighting volunteer work, transferable skills. So any sports, any clubs, any work that's been obtained through those specific groups. And the last one is a combination resume. And the reason it's called a combination, it's because it's a hybrid. So this one is a little bit of the chronological and a little bit of the functional. So this one helps to equally emphasize both the skills and the work experience. And like I said, we're going to be addressing today in this presentation, the one that we have highlighted here, the functional. That's the one that we want to kind of decompress and break down today for you guys so that you can learn how to tackle it. We'll be showcasing some templates and then some samples as well. So to dive deeper into that, this is a sample functional resume. So this is a template that you're looking at here on the screen. Tammy will also be making that available to educators and to students so that when they're ready to tackle creating their own resume, they will have this as a guide. And this is mainly broken down into 3 parts. There's the contact information / education, the summary of skills, and then the experience at the very bottom. So there's 3 key parts that we're going to highlight today. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Diane, and she's going to guide us through additional information and also breaking down the different parts of this resume style.
Thank you, Maria. And as she mentioned, there are several resume styles, and today we're going to be focusing on the functional one. And we do recognize that with the functional one, it's a little different, mainly because we know that this is the one we recommend for youth, and we know that youth don't always have that experience. But we're going to have an activity where we're going to let you guys review some of your work history and gather it. Tina, now, just because it is you, I'm going to go ahead and we used to in the past give them 5 minutes. And if we had students here, I would, unless you are constructing your resume as we go, I'm not going to give you the 3 to 5 minutes.
No, that's fine. I'm not
Okay.
doing it. I'm just gonna take notes and listen in. Thank you very much.
Okay. So with the information that we gather, we're going to gather that work history. If you have had work history, we're also going to do volunteer work because the functional resume allows someone to use volunteer work. And volunteer work can come from anywhere. It can come from you helping in the school, passing out flyers. It can even come in from being like a TA in school or doing the office aide. We're also going to talk a little bit about the clubs or sports involvement. You can also include that in that functional resume because we do know that there's things that you learn from there that eventually can be translated into a good attribute for a job seeker. And special projects or assignments. So those also, when we talk about special projects or assignments, you do gain skills such as being the leader of the project or being the timekeeper or the organizer. So go ahead and take those few minutes. Obviously, we're not going to do it today, but those students should take those few minutes to gather that information. And we're going to break it down in our next slide, how we can gather that. Oh, here I am trying to click it. Thank you, Tammy. So how do we derive our skills from our tasks? This is probably the hardest thing, is to identify how to fill out our resume. So this little format, or this little slide here, gives us an idea of how we can do that. Oftentimes we know the activities that we were involved in, but we don't know exactly what skills are available for us to use in our resume. So when we look at the tasks, that's the first part, identifying those tasks. We're going to derive skills from that we can put into our resume. So our example here shows us the first task is answering phones and emails as an office aide. So maybe this person has third period as an office aide, and what they do is they answer the phones, take messages, pass out the messages, or send emails. And what we can derive from that are the skills that this person would need in order to answer the phone or send emails would be having that communication skill to talk to the customer and also be able to write that message. So they have oral and written communication skills. And the other thing is, in order for them to provide the service that the other person is looking for, they have to have that customer service skill. So even if they didn't have it from the beginning, but during their first quarter that they were there, they were able to take messages and also direct the customer in the appropriate direction. From there, we're going to say that they had oral and written communication skills in addition to customer service skills. So now how would we translate that into our resume? We can use those words and put them into a little bit more of a sentence, and it'll read something like this: provided customer service with strong verbal and written communication skills supporting office staff. Our second example is the delivering a PowerPoint presentation to a class and or a school. So this person could be someone that was maybe in history class and had to do a group project, or maybe they're part of the ASB students that had to do a presentation during an assembly. Some of the things that they needed in order to do that or to deliver that message was they probably did a presentation on either some type of software, maybe it was PowerPoint, and they were able to talk in front of a public. So some of the skills would be the knowledge of Microsoft Office or PowerPoint, as well as public speaking, because they were able to do this message in a group setting. So now we would put that into words and we'd say something like this: utilize PowerPoint to efficiently deliver presentations to small or large audiences. That is just a simple sentence that tells the reader what the skills are, and they're more than welcome to add a little bit more detail. But in these two examples, just telling them the 2-3 skills that they gained from that activity are sufficient to tell an employer, this is a skill that I have. So this is how you can also derive skills from sports. So if someone was a captain of a soccer team, they can say, I was captain of a soccer team and I did leadership. I organized our drills. I made sure that everybody was in attendance. And they can use that in their resume description. It's not always about having paid work or unpaid volunteer work. Next slide, please. So now we're going to jump into breaking down the functional resume parts. There are about 3 major parts in there. And the first part is where we're going to put in our contact information, our objective, and our education. And it's important for you guys as youth to include that education, because it lets the employer know that you recently graduated. Later, as you start having more experience and maybe 10 years down the road, your high school education is 10 years ago, then you won't put it up at the top. But for the functional one, we're going to include it at the top. And we can see the example here. We're going to include our first name and our last name. We're going to put our general location of where we're at. So that would be Wenatchee, East Wenatchee. We don't have to put our physical address. You're going to be able to do that when you fill out the application. And then a contact information, and preferably we'd like 2 forms of contact. One of them can be phone number, the other one could be email. If you have LinkedIn, you can also include that in here as well. For the phone, we do encourage you that if you're the type of person that doesn't answer unknown phone numbers, when you're applying to jobs, you need to answer unknown calls. And the reason we say that is you don't have the employer in your contact, and they might call you to schedule an interview. And if they don't answer, or if you don't answer, they may not call you back. So the other thing to do is, if you don't answer, is have your voicemail set up simply with, "Hi, my name is Diane. I'm not here at the moment. Please leave a message and I will give you a call back." That way, if you don't answer, they can still leave you a message and you can give them a call back. With the email address, make sure your email address is professional. What that means is keep it something simple to like your name or your last name. Don't have it something inappropriate like cutiepie@hotmail.com or something like that. It just has to be a little bit more professional. And then we're going to do the objective statement. So in the objective statement, we do 2 to 3 sentences where you state your purpose for submitting this resume. So that could be something like telling a little bit about your skills, 1 or 2 skills, or also you can include the title of the job that you're applying to with the company. And then lastly, we do the education portion of it. So the name of the school, the location, and your graduation date. If you have not graduated, you can put in your anticipated graduation date. Next slide, please. So this is an example of one already filled out. So we see that we have Jane Job Seeker, first and last name. We have location of Wenatchee, Washington. We have their phone number and a professional email address, which is simply her first and last number and @yahoo.com. And then we have the objective statement. Again, the objective statement is 2 to 3 sentences. In this example, we see that her statement is, "My objective is to obtain employment in which I can utilize my skills and abilities. I have great customer service skills and am proficient in social media management. I am a motivated individual with great work ethic." So there she stated a few skills and stated what their motive for submitting this resume is. If you want to, you can include, like I said, the title of the position you're applying to as well. And then we see that they have the education, Eastmont High School, which is located in East Wenatchee. And this person has not graduated. Actually, yes, they have graduated in 2022. But if they hadn't, it would be anticipated graduation date of July or June 2023. Next slide, please. The second part of the resume is the summary of qualifications. This is probably the hardest part of the functional resume. And so what you do here is you're going to pick between 2 to 3 major skills that you have. And in those skills, you're going to provide examples that show or demonstrate to an employer that you have that skill. So for example, here we see that it says major skill number 1, do you have customer service skills? If you do, then you would write customer service skills as one of your main skills, and then add examples. Like maybe you were the office aide, and you can say that, assisted in the office when customers would come in or parents would come in and directed them to appropriate locations. Maybe you helped at the concession stands. And you can put that in there as well, assisted with the concession stands and helped up to 50 people a night. Do you have communication skills? If you do, then you can put in communication skills and provide examples where you've shown communication skills, such as doing a presentation for the school, so at an assembly, or doing a presentation as a group project. And another example would be like the digital skills. Do you have digital skills? You can put digital skills in there and then provide every example where you can show that you do have those digital skills. One of them that most of you guys have is the online portion of it. So you guys had the digital skills in going to school remotely. Next slide, please. So here is the example already filled out of the summary of qualifications, which is in this case, this person chose communication skills, marketing skills, and digital skills. Again, these are just examples. You can figure out what skills are the highest for you. Maybe they are communication skills, maybe it's public speaking, whatever you feel that is a highlight of or your big skills, your major skills. So let's look here a little closely. Communication skills, they said they facilitated FBLA presentations in the community. They write and distribute monthly newsletters to the school newspaper. They assist with answering phones and sending emails as an office aide volunteer. Generated emails to peers and teachers during distance learning. So that tells us that this person has communication skills. They gave us examples that show that they have communication skills. Let's look at the marketing skills. They've developed social media management strategies like flyers or sports pictures, manage social media platforms and updated posts as needed, Insured community schools stayed up to date with current events via social media. Again, that shows us that they do have those marketing skills. They show us those examples of the marketing skills that they've done. And then we have the digital skills, knowledge in Microsoft Office, PowerPoint, Word, Excel, and Outlook. Utilize Zoom, Teams, or Google Meets to attend meetings and distance learning, and proficient in web-based communication and research. Again, that tells us or gives us examples of digital skills. So when an employer reads this, they can not only see that these are your major skills, but that you have had experience in them. And that's when they see those bullets and show, yep, yes, this person has that skill that they mentioned. And the third part, this is the experience part. So in the functional, the experience goes last because most of the time youth have not had that experience, or whoever uses this functional resume probably doesn't have that much experience. So we put that last, and the experience could be either paid or unpaid. And you can include either one of them, paid or unpaid. We're going to include the name of the employer, where were they located, and the dates. And then the most important thing is, what did you do here? And you're going to give us the major duties that you had in that job. So let's look at the filled out example. So Jane Job Seeker has had 2 jobs. She's had 2 experiences. One of them we see is soccer captain, which was a club or sport that she did, where she learned a lot of things that she can use in her job. And the other one was a paid work experience. So the first one says she was a soccer captain in East Wenatchee, and she led pre and post game motivational speeches, organized team for warm-ups, and ensured practices remained on schedule, and arranged for a videographer to record games for future references and reviews. So those were her 3 major duties. The second one tells us that she was a checker at a cherry orchard. So we see that it was Red Cherry Orchard in Wenatchee, the summer of 2019. And her duties included accurately punching picker punch cards, guide pickers to appropriate orchard location and trees, and ensure appropriate amount of quality of cherries per bin. So there she gives us some knowledge of the duties that she did, and it gives the employer a little bit of what she's capable of. In combination with her major skills and her experience, we have a kind of a good understanding, a good picture of what this candidate might look like and how they fit with the job that we're offering. So that concludes the 3 major parts of the resume, and this is what a completed functional resume looks like. Again, we can see it all put together with the contact information at the top, the objective statement, education, and the major skills, summary of the major skills, 2 to 3 major skills, and then we close it off with the experience. Awesome. So I'm going to leave you guys with some resume tips. And these resume tips are going to allow you to better write your resume, and it'll make it stand out when an employer sees it. So the first one is the format. When you look at the format of the resume, make sure that you keep it brief. 1 page is ideal, and it's concise, but it's also easier to read. As you get older and you start having more and more experiences, you're going to have a little bit lengthier resume, but for now, let's keep it to the 1 page. Use bullets versus statements, use bulleted statements versus sentences. It is easier to read that way, and it's easier to construct. It's easier to read because whoever reads it, the human resource, can scan through it versus having to read long paragraphs in a resume. So in the bulleted statements, you're really getting to the point of what you did, and it makes it so much easier to read. Keep it clean and professional and relevant. Make sure that all the stuff that you put in there is relevant to your experience or to the job that you're applying to. Some of the guidelines, including using action words, action verbs, include transferable skills. So these skills are the ones that you can use anywhere. So having knowledge of Microsoft Office, you're going to be able to use it in almost every job. Having communication skills, you're going to be able to use it almost in every job. So include those skills that you know that you feel that can be used anywhere. No matter where you go, that skill is going to come with you and it's going to be useful. And then quantify your achievements. What this means is anything that you've achieved, whether it's in a volunteer opportunity, whether it's at soccer, use numbers to show the magnitude of what you can do. So for example, let's say that you worked at the concession stands And at the end of the concessions, you had to see how much money you made for that night. And instead of saying like I worked at the concession stands, say I worked at the concession stands where we made up to $500 a night and helped about 50 people. Or just using those numbers to show the employer the magnitude of what you can do, but also to show that it wasn't just you had a concession stand and you really only sold $3 worth of food. Make them, show them, paint them a picture of what you can do. And then the last thing is always have a second pair of eyes so that someone else can look at your resume and look for either grammatical errors or any mistakes you might have made. It's really easy for us to look at our resume and maybe we'll catch one or two things, and then after the second pass we don't see anything, but then someone else sees it with a fresh pair of eyes and they do see errors. So it is nice to have someone give it a second pair of eyes. So if you have a teacher or a peer that can do that, that's going to really help you find those errors. And I, at this time, will send it back over to Maria to close us out with some additional tips.
Thank you, Diane. Yes, so Diane just took the time to share with us some thorough information on building the content for your resume. And in order to do that effectively, we are going to spend a little bit of time on this slide to address targeting your resume. And I've used the word effective today a couple or a few times, and I want to highlight this. The reason I want to highlight this is because in order to create an effective resume that will actually bring you results, land you the interview, and possibly guarantee you the job, you really need to understand what targeting means. So to target your resume is super important. So we want to spend a little bit of time on that. And so when we say target your resume, what we mean by that is when you're applying to a specific position, you're going to take your applicable skill set. And what we mean by that is the skill set that you possess, which directly applies to the position that you're applying to, so that you can create a match in your resume between what the employer wants and what you actually have in a skill set and make that direct match. So you're probably wondering, well, what does this look like? Well, that looks a little bit like fun and a little bit of work, but we're going to help you with that today. So when you're creating a resume, when you are showing that you have a specific position that you've applied to and you want to be considered, you want to show the skill set that you possess, and so that it matches the specific skills that the employer is looking for. And what you want to do with that, essentially, your goal is to stand out from the bunch, right? You want to set yourself apart from other candidates who are also likely qualified, but you want to excel and stand out by doing a great job targeting your resume and hitting all those specific skills that the employer is looking for. So you'd be setting yourself apart from the other candidates, but for all the right reasons. And something that's super important to remember is you would not include any other skills that do not pertain to the specific position that you're applying for. You want to keep your resume targeted and focused. And I have a fun example story that I like to share on the what not to do when it comes to building your resume. So when I was younger in high school, I felt I needed to create a long, immaculate resume that had a lengthy list of all the skill set, all of my qualifications. I really wanted to show to the employer where I felt that I was super qualified. So I had this very long, very detailed resume, and I included all the different skill sets, and they were great skills, but they weren't always targeted. So they didn't always match the position that I was applying to. And what I was doing with this is I was actually shooting myself in the foot. I was working against myself, and I was creating more work for the employer because it was giving them a lot more information to review, to work through. And then ultimately it was moving me down to the bottom of the list where they were unable to see my actual skill set that I could bring to the table for the position that I was applying for. Because why? Because I didn't take the time to target my resume. I just felt that I was just being so great and having all this lengthy list of skills, but I was not targeting my resume. So that's why we want to drive across that point today is targeting your resume is very important. And we just want to remind you, if we were to recap targeting, we want you to take the specific skills that you possess and highlight them within your resume as they apply to the position that you are seeking to fill. So that is what targeting is. Okay, so with that being said, we want to talk about the how now. So how would you go about doing this? Well, we have some recommendations here on the screen. So the very first tip that we would give you is to print out the job description. So when you're looking at a position and you've decided I'm going to apply to this job, we recommend that you print it out, set it on your desk, take the time to use your favorite pens, your highlighters, and then highlight keywords and phrases. that you see the employer needs so that you can address them in your resume. And by doing this, again, you're creating that match where you're letting the employer know, I know that you are looking for this specific skill set and I have this specific skill set, so I'm showcasing it within my resume. So by highlighting those keywords, it helps you better organize yourself so that you know what to include in your resume. Another tip that we like to share is save your targeted resumes by name. Nowadays, there's different kinds of application methods, in addition to applying in person. You can also apply online. And when you're applying online, it is very easy to make a mistake and accidentally upload the wrong document. So oftentimes online applications will ask you to upload your resume, your cover letter. And so you want to make sure that you give your resume a specific name, either the position title attached to your last name, whatever professional name you choose to give it. Just make sure that you're able to find it located with the appropriate name on either your computer, your USB flash drive. And the goal here is just to be able to tell it apart so that you don't ever accidentally submit the incorrect document, because that would be unfortunate and also unprofessional. So save yourself a headache with that. Save your information. The other quick bit of info that we wanted to remind you guys of today is the information that Diane just shared with you guys, the breakdown of the template and the sample. This is what a general resume looks like. This resume would need to be modified in the future to include additional information. And as you gain experience, of course, that's also going to change, like we mentioned earlier, but this would not be the resume. So if you take the time to create this resume using that template that Tammy put in the chat earlier today, this would not be the resume that you would be using to apply to every single position. Again, because that would be a general resume and this would not be targeted. So just keep that in mind. It's very helpful to have your general resume, and you can also work off of it to create your targeted resumes. So if there's one thing that I can remind you guys today and to keep in mind is always, always, always target your resume. Spend a little bit of time on that and it'll work for you in the long run and help you get the job. And I'll hand it over to Tammy now so that once you land that interview, she'll give you some tips and tricks so that you can better prepare.
Yeah, so I've been lucky enough in my career to interview for several jobs myself in previous positions. And also I've been on the opposite end and had the opportunity to interview candidates and hire staff in previous positions. So this is a few tips that come to mind that will help you prepare for your interview. If you come to the Youth Employment Summit and let's say that you do throw your awesome resume at the employers and let's say you do land that interview, this is a graphic of a few top interview tips that I think is everything that I think is perfect for interviewing, as well as I'll give you a few of my own tips and tricks intertwined with some of these. So if we start at the bottom left here where it says research the company. Let's say that you do attend the Youth Employment Summit, you turned in your resume and your application and you got an interview. Now what? What do you do? So I say research the company, get online, go onto their website, see what kind of work they do, see what some of their initiatives are, read through their mission statement, get a grasp of who they are as a company and what they are there for and what they do. There's nothing like being prepared about the business. Especially if you go into that and you actually really don't know what they do. Let's say you applied and you really don't know what they do, get online and research. Second, I want to say, let's go above that where it says practice and repeat. Think of some of the questions that you think you are going to be asked. Write them down, have answers to those questions before you go into the interview. Just like studying for a test, you want to make sure that you are prepared and that those questions, you know the answers to yourself. Also, you want to be prepared of, going into the interview with a few questions for yourself on asking that employer. What do you know about the company? What do you want to know about them? What do you want to know about the job? What do you know about the business that you have applied for? Some of the questions that you might be asked, you want to make sure that you are thinking about that too. A quick way to do that is go online and Google top 20 interview questions. Right now, there's probably a ton out there for you, but high level, I would pick out some of the ones that come to mind that are like top 10. Are you friendly? Are you outgoing? Are you organized? What are your interests? Where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? What are the answers that come to your mind when those questions are being asked? So you want to make sure that you practice and repeat and prepare yourself so that you have those answers ready and available when that employer asks you those questions in your interview. Like I said, write them down, be prepared and practice so that you don't stumble when you get there and those questions are asked. Next, I want to say, get ready ahead of time. That's the top middle one there. Go ahead and pick out, professional clothes. First impressions is everything. They've never met you before. So make sure that you lay out the clothes the night before, dress to impress, even if the job might not be too fancy. I can't press that enough. Wear the clothes that fit properly, no holes, no jeans, a nice shirt, professional pants or skirt, and nice shoes. Know and research whether you are having an in-person interview or a virtual interview. Another thing is, if it's virtual, make sure that you have the link ahead of time. And if you are in person, where are you going? Make sure that you know where the location is, map it out ahead of time, even drive there the day before, make sure you know how long it takes you to get there. And then also seek out where you need to park. That's going to take another couple of minutes to park, and maybe you have to park across the street or down the road. Make sure you are prepared on where that building is, how you're going to get there, how long it's going to get you to get there, and where you got to park and extra additives, right? So if it is virtual, I say make sure that you check your background. If you are on camera, what is behind you? Make sure that there is nothing that will be misunderstood or offend anyone. And then make sure that you always check your computer connection. And make sure that your audio and visual is all well and working and prepared, so that you can go into that interview online and have no hiccups. Double check your Wi-Fi, make sure that it's all good. And then also just make sure that, if you are virtual, make sure that you pick a quiet place that has not a lot of background noise. So that's just a few of those. Next one, I want to go to the far right. Try to stay calm. You're just going to go for a conversation. One thing that might help you relax during your time of the interview or getting ready is that just as you are interviewing them just as much as they are interviewing you. This is your chance to scope out that business and see if you really want to be a part of their business or their company. Always have a few questions to ask them at the very end of the interview, and make sure that and make sure that job is what you actually really want, and the people that are there are the people that you want to be working for and working with. Next one, I want to say, let's go to the bottom middle. Be on time. That means early. So I can't stress this enough. If your interview time is 9 a.m., what time do you think that you need to be there? Now you can play along in the chat if you want, but you know, is it 8:15? Is it 8:55? What time do you think you need to be there if the interview starts at 9? Any takers? Anybody in the chat? No? Okay, that's fine. I want to say, if your interview starts at 9, I would say, yeah, okay, 8:45, 8:40, yeah, okay, perfect. Yep, right on the money there. I was gonna say at least the latest that you need to be there is 8:45. This gives you a chance to sit down, relax, take a couple of deep breaths, make sure that you're going through this okay, and start going through some of those prepared questions in your head that you just were practicing the day before. And it also gives you kind of a little bit of time to scope out the business and the place that you are, right? So just stay calm and collected. It's just a conversation. Just keep remembering that. And then obviously, last but not least, is the bottom right. It says follow up with your interviewer. Obviously, at the end of the interview, I always think like follow up with the interviewer. This is a nice touch to follow up, to send like a handwritten thank you or a personalized email. If you know that you that the turnaround for that job that you're interviewing for is going to be pretty quick or in a few days, you want to make sure that that thank you note is already to them in their hands before they start making those decisions, right? So a quick tip of mine that I usually do is that I always send a handwritten thank you note the morning of that interview. So I know that it gets to their inbox in a few days. So I always slip it in the mailbox on my way out the door in the morning. And I just know that that's going to get them to them in time. And a few things that are not on this list that covers pretty much this whole graphic, but I wanted to touch base on just a few other things that I personally think are important that I wanted to share with you that are not on this list, is to be yourself in an interview. Be relaxed and thoughtful. Don't mix things up. And if you don't know an answer to a question, that is okay. Tell them that you don't know and that you will research it and get back to them and give them an answer. They know when you are lying. So if you don't know something, that's okay. Be upfront with them, be forward, and just tell them. Be honest and try to connect with the people in the room. And then the last few things that I have written down here is try to remember the people's names that are in the room. I always say the 3 times the charm trick. If you say a person's name 3 times, you will remember them and you will remember their name. And look the people in the eye if you can, and give them a firm welcome handshake when you get into the interview and a firm handshake when you leave. So those are my tips and tricks of the resumes. So, or I guess of the interview. There we go. So I think after all said and done, this guy is like jumping into the elevator. You're all set. You've got your resume, you turned in your cover letter, you got the interview, and hopefully you use some of those tips and you got the job. So that's a guy like jumping for success.
He is feeling very proud that he nailed his interview and completed a great, excellent, effective resume.
Exactly.
And that's the confidence you need to really nail that interview. As you walk in and as you walk out, say hi to everybody, even if they are just even if they're just customers of that business, you walk in and say hi to everybody as if you're going to go interview with that person as well, because they will look at all of that from the point that you walk into the building to your exit. So always leave with confidence, even if you don't feel like you did that well, you leave with confidence and with a positive attitude.
First impressions. And this is our last slide that we have for you, because we wanted to drive across the point that if you do not take the time to follow some of these tips and tricks and really invest some concerted effort into targeting your resume, this is what's going to happen with your resume. It's likely going to end up in the recycle bin with hundreds of other resumes that were also not targeted. Therefore, you won't be standing out. You likely won't have the interview. You won't get the job if you end up with a resume where you do not target. So target those resumes, reach out to us if you have questions. We are always available, and take advantage of the tools that Tammy put in the chat, both the template for your functional resume as long with a sample, and then additional information on a chronological style as well. So again, take the time, invest some time in your resume, and we're always available for you guys, and you'll knock them out. You'll do great.
Yeah. Let's take a few minutes. Does anybody on the call have any questions for our team? And we will be sharing this recording, so we can give that to you guys. And if you are interested in the slides, we can also share those with you too. So does anybody have any questions? Okay, looks like everybody is good. Very welcome. Thank you all for joining. I'm going to stop my share here. And if anybody has any questions that they find out after the fact, or they forget, no problem. I'm going to put my email in the chat where people can reach me. You can reach me at my email at Tammy, T-A-M-I, at TAMIM at ncesd.org. Or you can also, I can connect you with Maria or Diane if any of you have questions. So thank you all so much of your time, and hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And if you haven't already, sign up for the Youth Employment Summit coming up on April 12th. So thanks so much and have a great day.